Rosalie, can you hear me?
Hi, yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, it's okay. How are you doing, Rosalie?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm a bit sleepy. Actually, I wake up early.
Really?
Are you talking from Southend-on-Sea?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where I live.
Is that like a very small city?
Yeah, it's quite small. It's about 30 miles from London. It's the nearest beach to London, so it's quite convenient um to get into town. And it's I mean it's a town, but it's not a city. It's like quite a big town.
Oh, okay. Got it. And yeah, how is the quote unquote end of the quarantine going on in England?
Well, it's taking quite a long time for people to adjust. Um, it still doesn't quite feel like we're allowed to be going out and doing the things that we're doing. We actually did, it wasn't my music, but we did a covers gig with my partner Roscoe, and a couple of friends, local friends. We put a four-piece band together just to play some rock and roll covers, like 60s and 70s stuff, just to like a packed room of people, just to feel what it's like again last Friday. And it was very strange. I mean, everybody was so close together, and it was a sweatbox.
Yeah, but it must feel good after like 1 year and a half.
Yeah, it does. But we both got sick afterwards. We don't think it's COVID though. It's I think it's just a cold that's going around. But we don't have the COVID symptoms. We just don't feel too good.
It's weird because it will get like totally scary when you get gigs again because it won't feel right to be gathering with a lot of people.
Yeah. So what's the situation over there? What's going on?
Brazil's very horrible actually. It's running as low as fuck. I even didn't get my vaccines yet.
Really?
Yeah, I'll probably take that like next month, probably maybe the end of this month. It's pretty complicated. People are not wearing masks at all. Most of people don't want to take the vaccine, so that's a mess. And our
Mm.
president's like the worst president in the world, so it's complicated. But we
Yeah.
get better eventually, I hope.
Well, wish you luck with that. Are events happening? Are gigs happening?
No, just I believe just the football championships working, but with no crowd.
Of course.
We have no events at all.
They get away with it somehow. Um, yeah, well, we're actually going on tour next month, which seems like a wild concept now after 18 months of not doing anything like that. Um, and we don't really know what the ticket sales are going to be like because I think lots of people are scared to go out. Um, that's the worrying thing here. We're allowed to go out now, but many people are still choosing not to because it's still not entirely safe. Um, and I think not just for that reason. I think many people have actually just got a bit agoraphobic. They've got a bit scared of actually going out and socializing.
Yes, I went out with a couple of friends some weeks ago, and I totally forgot how to be social. I didn't know how to talk anymore. That's very scary. But anyway, I know you had COVID like the very beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah, right at the start.
How was that? I had COVID as well. That's horrible.
Yeah, did you feel was yours bad?
I didn't go to the hospital, luckily, but yeah, that was very bad.
Yeah,
Did you
yeah,
got any sequela from that?
yeah. I haven't quite felt back to normal since. I don't know about you. Um, but then again, my symptoms are so vague, and they're symptoms that could also be symptomatic of just the emotional and mental strain that lockdown has had on me. Um, so it's very difficult to know. It's all very confusing, isn't it? So many blurred lines.
Yeah, that's weird. Some people die like months after for some side effects of COVID that they don't even know that was related to COVID. So it's pretty hard
Yeah,
to tell.
yeah. I've certainly had some quite a few health problems. I can't say they're related or not, but I was absolutely fine before.
Yeah, maybe. How's the new album going? I think you're very excited to hear about
Yeah,
it.
it's been a long time coming. You'd think that with having all the time in the world, just at home not doing anything, I would have finished it a year ago or something. I started I started it about a year ago, and I'm still doing it. Would you believe? Um, but it's very very close to being finished now. I actually finished it all and mixed it, and then decided I didn't like the mix, so I'm going to a different studio to remix it. And it's going to be out now, early February. 22. And that really, I mean, it's taken so long for a variety of reasons, but not having the pressure of a deadline was actually not so good for me. I think I would have achieved a lot more in a shorter space of time if we weren't in this limbo situation.
People say that the hardest thing is to finally say it's done and then you can move on, because otherwise you're gonna work forever on that.
I'm obsessive when it comes to working on music, really obsessive, and I can do it night and day until it drives me insane to the point of a breakdown, and then I have to have a couple of weeks off, and then I'll decide to do it all over again. So it's not been that good for somebody like me.
I know that feeling. It's called hyperfocus, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. I'm talking from Brazil. I've done some research, and it seems that you guys have like a lot of fans in Brazil, based on social media comments. Are you aware of this fact?
I definitely pay attention to, especially with Purson. We got a lot of comments from Brazil. It must be something about Brazilians, because they always say come to Brazil. Nobody else from any other country says, come to Mexico sometimes as well. So it's South Americans. They seem to love telling us to come to your part of the world.
Yeah, we definitely come to the gigs. That's cool.
Oh yeah, I know. I've heard stories. It would be a dream to come over there and do some festivals or a tour. It's obviously such an ordeal, so expensive, and getting visas and everything. But I think getting on a festival, you guys have some really big festivals, and that would be kind of the best foot in the door for that.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
We post a lot of merch to South America, actually. So I know that the fan base is there, which is lovely to know.
Cool. I hope you guys can come in the future here, maybe.
Yeah. If you have any contacts, please send them my way.
Yeah, I know. I mean, there's some labels that have been bringing some smaller bands like Trick Fighters, Stoner Jesus, most of the guys from Stoner Rock and Dune. But it's so frozen now because of the pandemic that I don't know how it's going.
Of course. Yeah. Well, travel's going to be quite difficult after this. We're supposed to be playing a European tour in February and March that we're just on tenterhooks about at the moment, waiting to know whether or not we can do that. Obviously, you probably know about Brexit as well, which is just bad news all around for our country.
Yes, I've been listening to news about Brexit for 2 years,
Stupidest move in the world.
It's like a soap opera, it never ends.
Yeah, it really doesn't end, but it does seem to be. It was actually 5 years ago that we, for some reason, our country, the majority vote was to leave Europe, which just seems insane to me. But yeah, so it's only kind of come into practice now that touring is going to be so difficult for us.
It's funny that most of the votes come from old people that will be dying in 20 years, maybe.
Well, it doesn't even affect them whatsoever. Yeah, you're right. So it's also they were very misled. I think the older generation in this country, probably in your country too, are very, very gullible, and they believe everything they read in the media, and so they're targeted, obviously, because the powers that be that have ulterior motives it's a huge chunk of the population that aren't sort of internet savvy enough to do their own research and just believe what they're fed.
It's horrible. In Brazil, we have like people that live in other countries supporting Bolsonaro here, but they don't even fucking live here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do a bit of timeline. I want to know how you got into music, like the first concept, the first instrument you learned how to play, the first bands you listened to.
That's a long story, so I'm going to go get myself a drink quickly from the fridge.
That's okay. Go there.
Okay. Well, I started quite early on, I suppose, compared to a lot of people. My dad was a musician and a music writer, so I was exposed to the world of rock music from a very, very young age. And just kind of, I didn't know exactly that rock music or playing guitar was what I wanted to go into, but I was always very into singing and performing and dancing and a very small bit of acting when I was a child and things like that. I wanted to perform. I was a show off, I suppose. I wanted to express myself, I suppose. And I was quite lucky that I was born into a family that really cultivated that. quite an artistic mother as well, so that really helped. And then when I did get into rock music, number one was the Beatles for me. That was kind of the gateway drug to absolutely everything that I'm into now, as it is for most people, a lot of people anyway. And so that began, it really became quite an obsession actually with the Beatles. They adorned my every speck of wall as a child and teenager. And I just had to be like them and write songs. So writing songs was my thing I was most passionate about, more than being a virtuoso on the guitar or being like Jimmy Page or being like this person. It was more just, I want to write songs. And I think that was quite an important thing for me to be passionate about to begin with, because that's kind of carved my career over time. So then just as soon as I had a bunch of songs and could play a few chords, I wanted to form a band. Formed a few bands at school. The one that ended up doing a couple of things and gigging, we started gigging when I was 13, just locally, and then that lasted a couple of years, and then I left school, moved to London when I was 16 and formed an all-girl band called Ipso Facto, and we ended up being picked up by a record label, our first ever gig. And so that was a bit of a whirlwind. I got to sort of see the world and do an awful lot of exciting stuff, dreams come true kind of stuff for me at that age. And then that kind of fell apart rather quickly. We were together for a year and a half, a very, very, jam-packed year and a half. But then I had about a year and a half out after that, I think probably to calm down and kind of take stock of what the hell just happened. And then I formed Purson.
Yeah, did you tour only in Europe with Ipso Facto?
No, we went to America too. We didn't tour in America, but we went to New York and we played a few shows in New York.
Oh, that's very exciting for a teenager.
It was so exciting. But it made me a bit complacent, really, because I thought, wow, this happened so easily. I can just split this band up and form another one overnight and I'll be in the same position. And of course, that didn't happen. We were very lucky. We were in the right place at the right time. And it was a lot harder getting Purson together.
And you guys had the same hair as well. Does that have any influence from Beatles?
Of course it did, yeah. It was quite lucky that, it was kind of a style that was going around London at the time. Lots of girls had that kind of look. But I sort of refined it and told everybody, you have to dress in monochrome. You have to get the same haircuts as me. And our drummer was kind of really not that style at all. She had like long blonde hair and just wore sort of like denim shorts and t-shirt. And she really wasn't happy about it.
I noted that she was the only one, the rebel one. We don't want to be like the same. Okay. There's like a big gap between Ipso Facto and Purson.
Yeah, I think it was about a year and a half.
It's not that big.
It's not that big, but I tried to do a band in the meantime in that gap. And I spent a lot of time and effort working on that band, and it never did anything. We never played a show. We recorded some stuff. I didn't like it. But it was an important learning curve for me because I wrote a lot of the first Purson album during that time.
That's very frustrating. I've been doing that for a long time, writing music and never putting it out. That's a bad feeling.
Yeah. It sometimes needs to be done for you to find yourself in a way, but
how was the beginning of Purson? I know you guys are all from the same city and you were like old friends.
Well, I was looking to start Purson for a really long time. It wasn't called Purson, it was just this band that I had I know exactly what we were going to sound like. I had a lot of the material. I was just looking for the right people. And then I met my ex-boyfriend who at the beginning of the band, he was the bass player. And we met when I was 17 because Ipso Facto recorded in the studio that he worked in. He was an engineer in this very niche, very, very retro recording studio that's completely analog, no piece of equipment from sort of after 1968 or something. It's really old school. And I thought that was amazing. I was blown away. And that sort of shaped my view of how I want my music to sound quite heavily, actually. So that experience was quite important. And I met him and, just as a friend, and then didn't really think anything of it. And then a couple of years later, when he'd heard that Ipso Facto had broken up, he got in touch with me. Well, quite a long time after, as I say, it was about a year and a half after, and got in touch with me and said, would you like to collaborate on something? And when we got together, it just worked. We had the same vision. So that's how the band began. It was just the two of us. And we were then looking to form a 5-piece. And I thought, well, why don't I ask my old friends? They're not very experienced. One of them doesn't even play an instrument, but he's my best friend, so he needs to be involved.
Yeah.
George and Sam, the keyboard player and other guitarist in person, they've been good friends of mine since my early teens. And we have grown up on the same music. We have the same sense of humor, and I just thought, if I'm going to start a new gang, I want it to be with them. And so George had to kind of quickly get his shit together on guitar. He could play guitar anyway very well. Sam couldn't play keyboards at all, had never played an instrument in his life.
Really?
Yeah, but we lived together in a flat in London, and I just said, well, I'll teach you.
He's such a good player, really.
He got, after I taught him the rudiments, he went and got proper lessons from a jazz pianist. So I won't take credit for all of that, but
yeah.
I mean, I play keyboards on the recordings, so that if you're talking about the recordings, that would have been my playing. But he did get very good as a live performer in the end.
I was talking about the live, actually.
Yeah.
I hear you guys played in Japan. I think it was Saitama City.
No, we never played in Japan. We were booked to play in Japan. Are you talking about the 2016 gig?
Yeah, it's very old stuff.
Yeah, we never went. We broke up.
Oh shit! It was before the gig.
Yeah, we broke up just before we were supposed to go.
My God.
It all disintegrated very quickly in 2016. We did an American tour. We did 2 American tours actually. But we did an American tour in 2016 that was the death of us, basically, very sadly. I wasn't done with the band at all. I thought in the future I'll go solo, but I didn't have any intentions of doing it at that point. But so many things went wrong at once that it was just the right thing to do.
Yeah, that's why I didn't find any material about this show, this concert.
We were so disappointed about that, really were. But it was it wasn't personal squabbles amongst the band. It really wasn't. We weren't perfect in that way, but we were like brothers and sisters. It was management and label stuff,
Oh shit! All right. I'm gonna ask some personal curiosities now for you to answer. First one, I want to know the meaning of the lyrics from the iconic song "Tragic Catastrophe."
Okay, that's such an old song. I wrote that a long time before I even started Purson. I wrote that when I was about 18. But I didn't write the lyrics until later, actually. So I wrote the music, and I had the music, and I knew that it was the melody I had and stuff was quite emotive. It needed to be something that I really meant, and I think that's why it took me about a year to put lyrics to it, because I couldn't find the words. And really, the song is quite autobiographical. It's sort of a story of a kid discovering rock and roll in sort of old dusty magazines in his dad's attic, which is exactly what I used to do as a young child and teenager. Look at these 1970s like Melody Maker and NME and all of that, and look at these pictures and think, well, that's what I want to do. That's what I should be doing. And yeah, that's what the song's about. Having that experience, but being in the 21st century, growing up, coming of age in the 21st century, where that sort of thing is redundant almost.
Yeah, that's very interesting, actually. Yeah, second one. I'm not sure if there's a reason for that, but why the song Sky Parade ends so abruptly in the studio version?
Well, I was copying because it ends the first side of the album, right? So on vinyl, it ends the first side of the album, and on Abbey Road, the first side of the album is cut short just like that, with I Want You, She's So Heavy. It sort of it crescendos into this massive noise at the end of the song, and then just the tape is spliced, and that's how the first side ends. And then it opens up again the second side with Here Comes the Sun. So that's kind of what I wanted to do with that. It was just a direct rip-off, really. So I don't know if that was understood by people. I hoped it would be.
Mm-hmm. Actually, there are more songs. I know there's a Black Sabbath song that ends abruptly as well. All right, third one. I want to know the story behind the cover of the second album, Desire's Magic Theater. I think you guys say theater, not theater.
Theater.
Yeah, it's different. Okay.
Well, that was the brainchild of me and Sam. Sam and I actually would always come up with the visual side of things. So although he wasn't a musician to begin with, he did become one, but he was always very influential with the whole aesthetic of the band, the visual side of things. And so we kind of had this idea where we would just go as mad as possible, your wildest dreams kind of thing. And so we all invented our own characters, so you can see the other four members of the band in the corners, and they made up those costumes themselves. We kind of just went, well, come as whatever you want to come as for this shoot. And yeah, I sort of digitally created the image of me, obviously holding lots of little dolls of myself as a trippy sort of narcissistic, I don't know, playing with myself kind of thing. And Sam, God knows what Sam is, some sort of like Shakespearean tragedy actress holding a fish for some reason. And George is a cowboy, because George is he's just a cowboy anyway. I don't think he was even dressing up. And yeah, Justin was some sort of Roy Wood sitar player kind of guy. And it was just all sort of like, I don't know, it was madness, all just pouring as much sort of wild psychedelic ideas into the imagery as possible.
Yeah, was that like a custom makeup or all done in the computer?
It was all real. Yeah.
Oh, real?
I was naked and blue for the whole day, wandering around this photo studio with quite a lot of people. It was quite liberating, but I smelt so bad by the end because the paint isn't breathable.
Yeah.
So I was sort of cooking in my skin.
Shit. Was that a sunny day?
Yeah, it was, but it was indoors. It was under studio lights, so obviously that's what was causing the heat.
Yeah. Fuck, that must feel bad.
It was disgusting.
All right, the last one. The one I sent you in advance, of course. I want to know if you have any crazy or funny story you lived under with Purson.
Hundreds. I mean, I've told this one many times before, but it is quite outrageous, so I can tell it again. We were once kidnapped.
Oh my God.
Our van broke down and in Belgium, and we were picked up by some really not legitimate sort of company that come and pick you up, like a garage. And they drove us for miles and miles and miles through the countryside, and we were having quite a nice time because we just thought, oh well, we've got plenty of time before the next gig. We'll just go get the van fixed and drive to the next gig. And about an hour and a half later, we were like, surely there's a closer garage. Why are you driving us so far? They didn't speak any English. It was, I think, a father and son, or an uncle and a nephew or something. They seemed related. They didn't speak any English, and the older guy had a lot of fingers missing. And then they took us finally to this lot with loads of broken down cars, burnt out cars and things. Really, really high gate, sort of like a 12-foot gate all the way around the perimeter. And just locked us in for a really, really long time and wouldn't communicate with us. And we started to get a bit confused at that point. And then they demanded 5,000 euros.
Oh my God.
Obviously we didn't have, I mean, the van was only worth like 1,000 euros. It was a piece of crap. So we just said, well, you know, what are we going to do? And we kind of thought about it. It's such a long story. It was Halloween, and we'd just come from Amsterdam. And we were gonna. None of us had any phone signal either, so because it was the middle of fucking nowhere. And our driver took initiative and said he was going to jump over the fence, and he remembers the way back to the motorway. So he walked back to the motorway, where he said that's the last place he had signal on his phone. So he went there. We couldn't contact him, so we just hoped that he was going to save us. I mean, we were useless. We were a bunch of children, to be honest. We were a terribly irresponsible band without a sort of adult to help us. And he came back eventually and said, I've called the police, because he tried to get the Belgian authorities to help, and the Belgian authorities didn't care. So he ended up calling the UK police to come over from England to come and save us.
That would take a lot of time.
Really dramatic, yeah. But then we realized that apparently they were going to be 10 hours, and we thought, oh well, we're starving, we've got no water, it's a really hot day. But also we'd just been to Amsterdam, so we had a load of drugs. So what are we going to do? We've got 10 hours to kill, and we're going to have to ditch these drugs because the police are coming. So we just ate them all. And had a really, really wild psychedelic time, smashing up their car lot with crowbars.
Sounds like a script of a movie.
It's crazy, isn't it? Someone needs to make it into a movie. It's actually even more insane than that, but I haven't got time to explain it. But we got driven home. We've cancelled the rest of the tour. We left the van there, and no, the van got towed back. Sorry, on the back of this massive truck, but it was ruined after that. We got driven back home.
All right, let's move to the next section now. It talks about your solo career. The last album you put out is incredible, of course. I like that you didn't try to copy yourself in Purson. Instead, you made something new. It's more catchy, It's more radiophonic, and your vocals sounds way more powerful and more natural in this one. How do you see this evolution from Purson to your solo career?
Well, I had a lot of time to think about things. What was the gap between? It was about when it got released. I think it was 3 years since the last Purson album. But I mean, I'd written a lot of the stuff in the year after Purson broke up, so it was quite. By the time the album was released, it was quite old material. But I was writing that material without a band in mind. So when I would write for Purson, I would think, how are we going to play this live? What's going to be effective on stage? You know, people like riffs, people like things like that. So I would be writing, thinking, what is the audience? You know, I was writing for myself too, but I was also thinking, oh, won't it be fun if we stick a big riff in here, kind of thing. Whereas with this album, it was really kind of just writing for myself. And the songs turned out that way, I suppose, because I wasn't. The arrangements could be more extravagant because I didn't have the constraints of a 5-piece band. I'm recreating it with a 5-piece band anyway, and I don't know, just growing up, I suppose. I think the songs are about my experiences. Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, because to me, it doesn't sound dramatically different. It's just like when I listen to it, it's like, oh, well, that was me at 26 and this was me at 28. It's, you know, it doesn't feel any different to me, but it's probably your job as a as a music critic to.
And I'm not a music critic at all. I hate them, actually. But yeah, no, I think it reflects your current moment of your life, probably. But that's cool because some bands, when they move something else on, when they do a reunion and new stuff, they try to copy what they were like in the past, and that's so horrible.
Well, I've never thought about that. I've never thought, well, that formula worked, so I'll do that again. It's not how my mind works when it comes to writing music. This album, though, the new one that's about to come out, is probably a bit more like maybe a cross between Purson and the last album. I mean, it's a bit sort of because I've had a band since and I've played these songs live, and also having my partner Roscoe, who I sort of, it's like having a band member living with me. So I'm constantly bouncing ideas off of him, and he plays the drums and he plays guitar too. But when I write a song, he'll jump on the drum kit and sort of play it with me. So it feels like a live band is playing the song, and so I get that feeling of, oh, wouldn't it be great if we stuck a heavy bit in here instead? A bit more like I would write with Purson. So. Yeah, maybe it's swinging back in that direction.
You put out recently 2 amazing songs, Number 149 and Fastest Song. Actually, when will the next album be out?
February next year.
February next year. Oh, it'll take a lot of time yet.
It's not just. I mean, it's pretty much finished. It's just the getting it pressed on vinyl and the amount of time the record label needs. We've been told that that's the best time.
There will be singles between now and February.
Yeah, I hope so. I really hope so. Because 149 and Fossil Song, both of those songs are not on the album. So there will be another single before the album comes out, but that will be something off of the album, I think. Cool. Yeah, I'm still not decided which song because it's difficult. There's lots of candidates for a single, I think.
Okay. And all right, I think that's it. Would you like to send like a last message to people that will be listening to this interview?
Well, I don't know which countries over the world are going to hear this, but really what I would like to push is for people to buy tickets for our gigs, because people have been very tentative and scared to buy tickets, I think. And we can't book things. The world can't go back to normal. I'm speaking on behalf of all bands, by the way. We can't book things and we can't plan our lives unless people buy tickets. So it's been a really difficult thing trying to get people to commit, because maybe it will get to the time of like the night before the gig and they'll go, oh, it hasn't been cancelled, so I'll buy a ticket. But it's very difficult to work like that when you don't know who's going to show up. It could be 20 people, you know, and then you're losing loads of money. So
Yeah, that's a terrible time you're living now, but you'll get better. I hope so. All right, thanks a lot, Rosalie. That was awesome. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for inviting me on.
Yeah, thank you. Keep being awesome and take care.
Thanks. Right.
See
Bye-bye.
you.